Speaker. As my colleague David Parker said, the Labour Party does support this bill to Select Committee with some reservations, and I stand here to speak in my capacity, in particular as Labour's tourism spokesperson. David Parker was correct in that we need to look after the tourism industry because it is our second biggest export earner. 1 in 10 New Zealanders are employed in a tourism or derive an income from tourism, and $50 million a day is spent on tourism in New Zealand. So it's really important that we do look after the tourism industry. And I can see both sides of this argument in that it is really important that when tourists go to Stewart Island, they do have those facilities, those amenities and the infrastructure to actually provide them with a good experience, and also for Stewart Island to actually cope with the numbers. With 30 to 40,000 tourists arriving there every year, that is a huge burden for the Stewart Island infrastructure to actually be able to cope with. And in particular, when we talk about public amenities such as toilets, I come from a part of the country where the infrastructure, the local infrastructure, didn't actually cope with the facilities, the sewage system and that, and it led to overflow into rivers and that, and it had a downstream effect on a number of oyster farms. And we can't have that sort of same problem happening in Stewart Island, where we have effluent going into the sea and damaging perhaps the oyster industry around the bottom of the South Island. So I do see the need to invest in the infrastructure and the amenities of Stewart Island. Now, I've spoken to a number of people who work in the tourism industry or have businesses, accommodation businesses in Stewart Island. They've said that they don't believe a levy of $5 will actually impact on the numbers of tourists going to Stewart Island. My concern, on the other hand, though, is the accumulative effect of other areas of the country who may also want to have set levies. And we've heard about the Chatham Islands have some sort of arrangement, but if Waiheke Island, Great Barrier Island, say Queenstown, Milford Sound also decide to set levies, it's actually that accumulative effect that may have an impact on whether somebody sitting over at their computer on the other side of the world and is making decisions about whether or not to come to New Zealand for a holiday, if they see that there is all these added costs, it may actually affect your decision to travel to New Zealand. And so that's, as I've said before, we need to actually make sure we do protect the tourism industry in New Zealand in general. I've spoken to members today of the Inbound Tour Operators Group, and that was the main concern that they have, that if a precedent is set with these levies, that it may just increase the cost of holidays to New Zealand. Having said that, going back to the number of tourists coming in to Stewart Island, 36,000 tourists, Eric Roy has said. Of those 36,000, about 60% are international tourists. And we can't have international tourists turning up to substandard facilities. They come here with an expectation of nice public facilities, of good accommodation, of nice walking tracks. We really need to make sure that the reality matches the expectations of these international tourists. So, Mr. Speaker, it is appropriate that we do go to Select Committee to discuss all these issues around it. It is really important. We don't have the regulatory impact statement that we would normally have, and we don't have the input from those various ministries that David Parker did talk about, from the Tourism Ministry, from the Economic Development Ministry. It's important that we have all this information, we have this big discussion. It's important that Stewart Island does have the amenities that they need to cater for the tourists. It is important that we cater for the wider New Zealand tourism scene, and so it's important that these conversations are had at Select Committee. So, Mr. Speaker, we do support it, going to the Select Committee and having those discussions. Thank you.